Chosen one, listen closely. The silence you've been living in was not abandonment, it was strategy. There were moments you prayed and heard nothing, moments you cried and felt unheard, moments you obeyed and still felt unseen. And the enemy whispered, "God has forgotten you." But heaven was never silent. Heaven was building. Because some miracles require silence, some elevation requires isolation, some transformation requires separation. You thought you were being ignored, but you were being shielded. God removed you from certain rooms because the conversations inside were not safe for your destiny. He disconnected you from certain people because their access would have delayed your purpose. He slowed things down because if he released it too early, it would have broken you. You were not being punished, you were being protected. Think of Esther. Before the crown, there was concealment. Before the palace, there was preparation. Before elevation, there was isolation. She spent months hidden before she was revealed, not forgotten, not overlooked, but refined. And you have been in that same season. There are things God has been doing in you that people cannot yet recognize. He's been healing wounds you never spoke out loud, correcting patterns nobody else noticed, strengthening your spirit where no one could see. That's why the battle felt internal. That's why the warfare was in your mind. That's why the pressure felt invisible. Because the real transformation was happening in the secret place. You survived things that should have changed your heart. You went through betrayal and still chose purity. You endured rejection and still chose love. You faced disappointment and still chose faith. That's not weakness, that's evidence of divine covering. There are people who walked away because they were only assigned to the old version of you. There are doors that closed because they were connected to who you used to be, not who you're becoming. And now the season is turning. Not loudly, not dramatically, but spiritually. You will notice it in your peace first, in your discernment, in your clarity, in your ability to walk away from what once drained you. God is not about to announce your next season. He is about to reveal it. You won't need to force it. You won't need to chase it. You won't need to beg for it. What belongs to you will recognize you. People who doubted you will suddenly respect you. Places that rejected you will suddenly invite you. Opportunities that ignored you will suddenly pursue you. Not because you changed for people, but because God finished his work in private. The silence is ending. The preparation is complete. The shifting has begun. And when it manifests, no one will be able to deny that it was God.
Chosen one, if you are still listening, then understand this. Your spirit is not here by accident. There is a divine pull happening right now. Something inside of you recognizes that these words are not ordinary. They carry weight because they are touching a place in you that has been waiting for understanding. You've spent too long being strong in silence, too long holding battles in your chest while smiling on the outside, too long explaining yourself to people who never tried to understand you. And God has seen every moment. There were seasons where you felt like you were talking to heaven and hearing nothing back. You prayed, you waited, you believed, and still silence. But I need you to hear this clearly. Silence is not absence. Silence is often evidence that God is doing something too complex to explain too early. Because if God showed you the full picture too soon, you would have tried to control it. If he revealed the outcome before the process, you would have rushed it. If he explained every delay, you would have tried to negotiate the path. So he hid the details. He protected the process. He covered the plan. Not because you were unworthy, but because you were chosen. You see, when God calls someone deeply, He prepares them deeply. Surface-level calling doesn't require deep breaking, but powerful purpose always requires intense refinement. That's why your journey hasn't looked like everyone else's. That's why your path has been lonelier. That's why your lessons have been heavier. That's why your heart has been stretched further. You were not being punished. You were being shaped for something uncommon. Some of you had to grow up early. You learned responsibility before you learned comfort. You learned survival before you learned softness. You learned endurance before you learned rest. And people never saw the cost of that strength. They only saw the results. They called you strong, but they never asked how much you had to endure to become that strong. God knows. He knows the weight you carried when no one offered help. He knows the tears you swallowed so others wouldn't worry. He knows the nights you questioned everything, but still chose faith by morning. That kind of resilience is not human. That kind of endurance is spiritual. You are still standing not because life was easy, but because God refused to let you break. There were attacks on your confidence, attacks on your identity, attacks on your calling, attacks on your peace. The enemy tried to make you doubt what God had already confirmed. He tried to make you feel forgotten when you were actually being preserved. He tried to make you feel delayed when you were actually being aligned. He tried to make you feel rejected when you were actually being redirected. Because when you carry destiny, resistance follows. You were never attacked because you were weak. You were attacked because you were dangerous. The enemy does not waste energy on people with no future. He does not fight what poses no threat. He does not target what carries no assignment. He fought you because heaven already marked you. And yet, you're still here. That's evidence. Some of you should not have survived what you survived. Some of you should not still believe after what you experienced. Some of you should still have love in your heart after the betrayal you endured. But God preserved you. He preserved your heart when bitterness tried to claim you. He preserved your faith when disappointment tried to silence you. He preserved your identity when confusion tried to rewrite you. And now, the season is shifting. Not all shifts are loud. Some shifts happen internally first. You start noticing your tolerance for certain things is gone. You can no longer entertain environments that drain you. You no longer feel comfortable in spaces that once felt familiar. Conversations that used to excite you now feel empty. That's not you becoming distant. That's you becoming aligned. God is changing your appetite. He's changing your discernment. He's changing your spiritual sensitivity. Because where you are going requires a different version of you. You can't carry old mindsets into new seasons. You can't bring old habits into divine elevation. You can't hold on to familiar dysfunction and still walk into uncommon purpose. So God began with the hardest work first. Internal transformation. He allowed discomfort to expose what needed healing. He allowed separation to reveal who truly belonged. He allowed stillness to confront what noise had been hiding. And it was painful, because growth always is. But now you're not who you used to be. You don't react the same way. You don't chase the same thing. You don't tolerate the same thing. You don't desire the same thing. You are evolving spiritually. And with that evolution comes acceleration. What used to take years will begin to happen in months. What used to feel impossible will begin to feel natural. What used to feel distant will begin to draw closer. Not because you forced it, but because God finished the foundation. There are doors opening quietly right now, not loudly announced, not publicly celebrated, but strategically placed.
conversations you'll have that will change directions, moments you'll experience that will shift perspective, connections that will arrive that will feel divinely familiar. You won't have to convince the right people, they will recognize you. You won't have to chase alignment, it will meet you. You won't have to fight for validation, your presence will carry authority. And when things begin to unfold, it will feel surreal, not chaotic, not rushed, but ordered. Because when God orchestrates, there is peace even in movement. Some of you are entering a season where restoration will surprise you, not just emotionally, but practically. Opportunities will begin to surface, ideas will begin to flow, clarity will begin to sharpen, motivation will begin to return. Not because you suddenly became capable, but because the timing is now right. The delay was not denial, the waiting was not wasted, the process was not pointless. Every moment was preparing you. And you will soon realize that if things had happened earlier, you would not have been ready to sustain them. If certain doors had opened sooner, you would have lost what was meant to bless you. If certain prayers had been answered immediately, you would not have had the wisdom to handle the weight. God's timing didn't protect the blessing, it protected you. There are still people watching your life quietly, some out of curiosity, some out of skepticism, some out of admiration. But what's coming will speak for itself. You won't need to explain your growth, they will see it. You won't need to announce your transformation, they will feel it. You won't need to defend your journey, the results will defend it for you. Because when God elevates someone, the change becomes undeniable. The ones who underestimated you will reconsider. The ones who overlooked you will reevaluate. The ones who walked away will reflect. The ones who doubted will observe. Not because you sought validation, but because God is about to vindicate. You are not walking into noise, you are walking into purpose. You are not stepping into confusion, you are entering clarity. And slowly, steadily, intentionally, life will begin to make sense again. The silence served its purpose. The isolation completed its work. The process strengthened your spirit. And now, the unfolding begins.